Hey everybody, welcome to Talk Heathen. Today is Sunday, February 4th, and it is Season 2, Episode 4. Thank you for tuning in. I am flying solo, I think, today. Jamie is unfortunately busy, but that's okay. I'm going to keep you company. We're still going to have a really good time. Today's Super Bowl Sunday, so thank you for calling in and getting your dose of godlessness in. I do want to say thank you to the people in the studio audience for coming out to see us. Woo! Thank you so much. Oh, good, the lines are lighting up, which means I don't need to just talk for nothing. So, with that said, I'm going to go to my first caller, and I'm going to pick up Tina in Portland, Oregon. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. How are you guys?
I'm doing really good. What do you want to talk about today?
I come to this Corvallis church with my, it's an Evangelical church with my people who have developmental disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time, I hear these people say that God made you perfect just the way you are. You know, these people have never, even developed legs. They've never walked.
Yeah.
And then in the next breath, they turn around and tell them, you'll be able to walk when you get to heaven.
Oh, that hurts.
I know, right?
Yeah. So
yeah.
That really is one thing that kills me, is seeing that the idea that a church will break your leg to sell you a crutch. I mean, you and I know that we're here for one shot. This is it.
Right.
And we've got to make the best out of it. I've actually worked in special ed for a good while. And I've come to care and really love a lot of kids that have special needs. And their lives are not less. It's not less valid. And it's not less whole. Their families love them, and
yeah, I love my people. I've been with these guys for years. I just adore them, and it's like this. Everybody with developmental disabilities that I know is overwhelmingly religious.
Yeah, well, and you can actually expand that out outside of just special needs, because I've talked to plenty of religious people who are looking at atheism going, hey, what do you have to live for if you're not going to heaven? And the funny thing is if you were never told that you're going to have infinite cupcakes and belly rubs after you die, you're not going to miss it. So... yeah, and so the idea that you have to have something to replace it just further cements in that it's selling people on something that isn't true. And of course you're going to miss something, but if you were never going to get it, then what's the point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love these guys. So it's kind of hard to hear that stuff. I mean, they don't get it. They don't understand. They just think God loves them.
Yeah, absolutely. Tina, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I just want to tell you guys that you're awesome. I just love the fact that you young folks are out there doing this. I mean, it's awesome. We need more young people out there. My kids are heathens, and all their friends are heathens, and it's just awesome. Thanks, guys. I really like that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for being a fan. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and I subscribed right off the bat. So I don't know if you got your 10,000 yet or not, but I was one of the first ones, dude.
Well, actually, we're plateauing. We are up around 5,600 subscribers, and we got to boost that up. So anybody else who's watching, not just you, Tina, but anybody else who's watching and is a fan, share it. Let's get this out. Let's make this awesome. Let's make this big and continue to grow new voices in the atheist movement. So I so appreciate you, Tina. Thank you.
Right on, guys. Have a great show.
Hey, thank you.
Bye.
Right, bye-bye. That's what I'm talking about. I love it. It doesn't matter if you came in today. It doesn't matter, well, okay, I love people who have been with us from day one, but if this is your first time watching the show, I'm really happy you're here. And we are growing, we are contributing to adding young, new, fresh voices. And we're going to break that stereotype. We're going to break the idea of the old, bald atheist on the air. I love those guys, but we need some more people, some more outside views to be able to mix it up. And Actually, we are planning on getting that to happen. We have some really, really awesome people that we're talking to, and we really do want to get that to work. So here's to that. I want to bring you I'm going to bring you the best content that I can, and so we're going to work for it. So I had 2 callers drop off. Call back in, you guys. I'm going to pick up Janet, but before I do want to reiterate the number: 1-512-686-0279. Don't leave me, you guys. Call in. I need ya. And with that, Janet!
Hey.
Hey! I'm doing well. Thank you so much for calling in. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. Doing good.
Yeah, you ready to watch the Super Bowl?
Warm again in Florida, so I'm happy.
Cool, cool. Are you ready to watch the Super Bowl? Do you have a team?
I don't even know who's playing.
The Eagles?
I'm taking a knee.
The Eagles and the Pats.
Yeah, I don't care. I might look on their colors. I honestly don't follow it at all. So yeah I'm kind of useless when it comes to football.
Well,
Not my thing.
We have a lot of international viewers, and I think this is the American equivalent to the last game of the World Cup. This is something everybody's big and into. And
well, one of the fellow mods, Chris, did say that he was watching "quote unquote" real football because he's not in America. So
it's kind of a misnomer. It's weird, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't do sports, so I really don't. You know, who's playing again? The Eagles and the Patriots.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll say Eagles just because Patriots have won a few times. Let's give the other guys a chance. I don't really, whatever.
I think most people are with you.
Okay. Cool. I don't want any hate mail over this comment, please.
No worries, Janet. I will be the one to get the hate mail, so that's okay. That's okay. So what did you want to talk about today?
Well, we've talked the past couple conversations about indoctrination and trauma, and I wanted to kind of continue the discussion since, that's the Talk Heathen theme, by addressing, I guess, and sharing what my specific trauma that I endured at the hands of my church. And just so people can kind of understand the types of things that happen, especially in the Bible Belt when you're, in these fundamental churches.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of share time.
Yeah, go for it.
I've been attending the same church from 9 years old. They came, around on a bus and invited us, and it sounded all fun and everything. And, that's how they get you. They come and pick you up, and they take you, and you do fun things when you're a kid. And then they start drilling these things into your head, right?
I know.
And I had already been going to church, since birth. But there was a time when, we just didn't have a church. So we weren't going for, maybe a year. And that's when, when they stopped by, my mom's like, oh, by all means, go to church. Well, then eventually the entire family was going to church. But around 15, I started verbalizing, my doubts and questioning different parts of the Bible. And I had already learned the Bible, read it through twice by the time I was 15. So I, understood it, and I was, winning the trivia games and stuff. So I knew it. And I was like, these things don't make sense to me. And I'd ask questions, and I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted. And so one night at Bible study, which I would think would be the forum for questions, one of the leaders asked me why I was doing these things and why was I saying these things. And it was suggested by one of the deacons that I was possessed.
Oh, did you get exorcised? Tell me you got exorcised. Did you get exorcised?
Well, from that point, they anointed me with oil and laid hands upon me. And the elders of the church all did, all men, of course.
Of course.
And
not creepy
they
at all.
Prayed over me and said I was overtaken by evil and possessed, and commanded them, the devil, to be the demon, whatever, to be expelled from me.
Be gone, demon.
Right. It was that. And it was like it felt like, 2 hours, but in reality it was probably more like, it was probably a good 10 minutes. I mean, it was a long time that they prayed and prayed, and I'm just looking at them like I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because, I'm a teenager. I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just asking questions. I'm not possessed by anything.
Yeah.
But it, not only was it embarrassing, but it was uncomfortable, and it made me think afterwards, like maybe there was something wrong with me. Like why couldn't I believe? Why couldn't I be good enough? And I was a good kid, but I couldn't make myself believe these things. And this happened every prayer service for the next probably 6 months. Every time that I would go in, they would pray over me. They'd anoint me and pray over me. And it wasn't so long, after the first time. The first one was obviously the longest. But it continued until I pretended to be rid of this demon and would play good Christian. Yeah. And that's when I stopped asking questions and I stopped hinting it out, and I just faked it until I could, get away from it. And I continued to fake it until a few years ago.
Well, I'm really, really glad you're here on this end and you're comfortable and you're able to question the world around you. That's so important. I think we've talked about this before, but I also had that feeling that something was broken in me, except instead of laying hands on me, they started pushing me away. I led less older kids in Sunday school, and they put me with the little ones. But I do remember thinking that there's something really wrong. And looking back at it, what does that say when you are being chastised like that for asking questions, right? I mean...
Right, and I wanted them to explain to me the things that were missing. And of course, you eventually realize they can't, but at the time I was like, I wanted to try. Like, I wanted to believe. I grew up in the Bible, so everybody was, religious.
Sure.
I didn't know. Atheists were, explained as people who were possessed by demons. They were devil worshipers, and we didn't know. Like, that was a word that was like a horrible thing. That's not a person you wanted to be.
Well, what about secular?
And, it was drilled into your head that these people were bad people. They were horrible people, and you didn't want to be that, you know? So, I became active in the church, and I was like, actively recruiting people. I was going out and, quote unquote, soul winning and everything. And then, eventually I finally just like made myself, listen to my thoughts and then be like, this is not what you believe. You don't believe it. There's a reason you don't believe it. So I started taking history, religious history classes and world religion classes, and just anything I could read, I read. Anything class I could take, I would take. And finally, I realized, okay, there are other people who don't believe it. It's okay not to believe it. But it took me so long to get over that trauma of like how I was raised and what happened in church. So I think that people who aren't raised that way or didn't have, obviously, hopefully not everybody has my experience, but has, traumatic experiences.
Sure.
I just want them to understand that these are things that do happen, and to maybe go a little easier on people who were indoctrinated.
Definitely. And on the flip side, don't be so quick to assume that people aren't honest in their conviction. We've gotten a lot of talk about when Hamish calls in, a lot of people think that he's a troll, but he is
no, I believe that they believe it.
Well, he is exactly like a lot of people in my church were. To a T, there are people that are like that. And that's why it's worth talking about. I absolutely
believe it. Like, I have no doubt that my family, I am the only one in my family who doesn't believe, and I have absolutely no doubt that they 100% believe it.
Yeah.
Like they absolutely believe it. They absolutely believe in, even in the demons and the possessions and stuff, like they believe that.
Well, the demon thing, the possession thing, the speaking in tongues thing, that is actually harder, I think, for a lot of people to get out of, because you are entering into this social contract, this other idea that everybody's going to play along with it. And if you're not, it looks real weird. Like super weird, real quick. And
they actually brought in these preachers one time, guest preachers, to teach us how to speak in tongues. And I refused to do it. And of course, I was the bad person again, because I was like, I just couldn't do it. I don't want to look ridiculous. I don't want to force myself to do something that I know is ridiculous. And so, once again, I was shamed because I didn't take part. But I just stood at the back of the church and just watched these people just make complete fools of themselves.
Well, and
I'm sorry, but that's what they did.
Well, and it sounds vaguely Middle Eastern. And the idea, the diction, at least from what I've seen, the way that they pronounce their gobbledygook and the pacing that they do it at is somewhat vaguely Middle Eastern. So I can't help but feel that if I grew up in a country and I spoke a Middle Eastern dialect, how offended I'd be. Could you imagine people pretending to speak English and thinking that they're... Right. It's just a weird thing. It's a weird thing, and it's hard to get out of.
It really is. And it makes it's really, especially when you're a child and you see these things and everyone's, acting like it's normal. And then you're sitting there going, you're the doubter, you're the skeptic, and you're sitting there going, why is everyone okay with this? And you go to the people you trust and ask them, these questions, and then you get basically, punished for asking questions.
And what happened to Doubting Thomas? What happened to Doubting Thomas for questioning?
You're absolutely right. That's a great example.
What did he do?
That's a great
do you
example.
Remember?
I mean, the actual story, I don't remember.
No?
Doubting Thomas.
After Jesus came back, Doubting Thomas was like, I don't believe you. And Jesus said, put your fingers through the holes in my hands. See that it's real, right?
When Jesus came back, there were people who said that, he didn't even look the same and everything. So, there's absolutely a reason why, there was doubt.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it's like if a completely different person, that you're saying, okay, well, that's him, there's absolutely reason to doubt that was, the same guy when he looked nothing like the guy who died.
Yeah. And my question outside of that is, for people who posit that there is a loving God, why did Jesus go out of his way to say, see the proof to him and not to us? That is something that blows my mind, is that Saul of Tarsus, on the road to Damascus, had this huge event happen that changed him completely, that he wound up becoming Paul and an apostle, and it was such a big deal. And that was something that happened directly to him. It actually, at least as far as the story is concerned,
according to the story,
it was something that their God actually did, where I'd be pretty freaking convinced if that happened to me.
Well, a lot of people will say that, they'll ask, if the, biblical God was revealing himself to people and to Moses, to, Saul, why can't he still do those things? If we're asking and they're like, oh, he sends signs, but he didn't send signs to those people. He actually appeared and he actually, gave, proof of his existence according to the stories.
Sure.
And, they have no answers for those things. It's always, he sends signs and you have to open your heart to him. And anyone who reads the Bible knows that God is not a loving God.
No.
God.
Not if it's the same God from the Old Testament to the New Testament. If it's the same character, then no, it's terrible.
Right. And even in the New Testament, people like to think of Jesus as, hippie Jesus, full of love, but Jesus was not, a hippie, loving guy either. He was not preaching all peace and love. And so I think that that's a misnomer, and people just want to believe that, but It's not actually the case in the text. He said he didn't come to make peace, so I think that people need to understand that that's...
He said, I did not come to change the law, I came to fulfill it.
That's
Jesus also said, slaves, be good to your masters.
Exactly. So he's not trying to say now, everything's peace and love. And I think that a lot of Christians think, they take, what we always say, they cherry pick, and they do. Mm-hmm. They pick the, few verses that are, these are nice things to do, which is great, but they completely overlook or dismiss the ones that are, not so nice.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to and have never subscribed to the God being a loving God, and I don't subscribe to Jesus being that either. When people are like, I like, Christ, I wish more Christians were Christ-like, I'm like, then you don't know what the Bible says, because Christ wasn't that great of a guy either.
Yep, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's funny that that people ascribe so much to Jesus, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and I realize that the idea of Jesus reminds me of the idea of Socrates and how so many things are ascribed to Socrates. And people argue whether or not Socrates ever existed, but the ideas and the stories that happen there are the bigger takes on it. Socrates didn't need to exist for this giant change in the way logic works. You have, I mean, Socrates didn't need to exist for Plato to have the ideas that he did, or Aristotle to have the ideas that he did. And I can absolutely say the same. I think I feel the same about Jesus. The character of Jesus didn't need to exist for a church to be around, because nobody's been able to come up with the bones of Christ. We've talked about the bones of Christ. Nobody's been able to give you and show you these are the bones of, or something that's physical and tangible.
Well, that was a discussion in the atheist experience discussion group this week was, is there any substantial proof that Jesus actually existed? Not even going into whether or not he did anything supernatural, but did he actually exist? And it, went on for quite a long time, and there was a lot of, lively discussion about it. But the outcome was there's nothing convincing. There's absolutely nothing convincing. A couple of mere mentions of their being Christians does not a Jesus make.
No, it does not. It does not.
Yeah.
And there is more and more evidence that's showing that the closer you get to that time, the more you're going to find there are huge differences in this sect of Christianity and this sect of early Christianity, and they did not agree with each other on a lot of really core things. It wasn't until you started having the Council of Trent and the Council of Nicaea that you started weeding out other books, right? And you started coming to a consensus on those things. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, but how often do you see that? It's just cherry-picked. It's just cherry-picked.
Yeah, and a lot of Christians aren't even taught that there are some non-canonized books of the Bible. It was funny because when I was growing up, they used to sing this song about Zacchaeus, so we were taught that from really small, this song about him. And then when I got older, I'm like, how come I can't find him? In the Bible, I was like, when we sing this song about Zacchaeus, but where is he? And it's and then there's people laugh, well, where's Jesus' youth? He's born, and then all of a sudden he's a carpenter at 33. It's where's his youth? Right. And those are all, of course, in the other books that didn't make the cut.
Nope, didn't make it.
Yeah. So how one decides which ones do versus which ones don't,
they have to fit the narrative. They have to fit the narrative.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's definitely something that I think that is worthy of discussion, and I hope that people who are listening, who have family members who are still in religion, stop to try to pay attention, especially to the youth, that maybe they need someone who can answer their questions and be there for them, and even if they're believers too, I have, I've talked about my nephew in the past and everything. Yeah. Even if they're believers, I still want him to feel like he can ask me questions. Even if it's, for him to feel better about his, himself and what he believes, I want him to feel like he's, able to approach me. So I think that, it goes back to my original call was about community and how we need to be more open to people who are theists. And I think it all kind of wraps up in saying that, if we're so blocked off and we're right, and we're almost preaching against preaching, then we're not approachable. So I think that we need to, be approachable and let those people, come to us. And even if we can drop a seed of doubt every now and then, it'll eventually, hopefully, grow.
I agree. And I love that you're of that mindset. And the funny thing is I would tell the exact same thing to somebody who actually had a firebrand mindset either. I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. And I know you don't either. I'm just saying this for people who are watching. that it takes all types, and what will work for one person won't necessarily work for another.
Absolutely. So, sometimes you do have to fight fire with fire. So
absolutely. Yeah. So for the people that I do care about, okay, I'll take a lighter touch because I want to preserve those relationships. But for people I just met, people who I'm talking to on the street, no,
Right.
You're not going to get that consideration. Sorry. You can get that from your friend.
Right. I mean, and you have to gauge it by, how the person's coming at you as well.
Sure.
So, I mean, if they're coming to you saying, like you're possessed by a demon, maybe, hey, let's, have a nice little, fireside chat is not going to be your best, response.
No, but also pretending like you're possessed is not going, but it's fun. But it's not going to actually make it happen. Yeah. Right. Hey, Janet, I so appreciate you calling in. I'm actually going to move on to the next caller.
Yep, sure.
But
absolutely,
you're amazing. Thank you so much. It was always fun.
And hi to everybody in chat.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I actually had a really great conversation with Russell Glasser earlier today. We were talking about what we expect from the future. And one thing that really inspired me is when I have conversations with other skeptics, when people say, I don't know this thing for sure, or I don't have enough information, or I hope, or I think, and based on this evidence, the idea that you need to have this straightforward, cutting through, this is the way it is, and that's all that you're going to get, is stifling. And when you start to see and start to experience conversations with people that actually are willing to consider other points and say, hey, let's research this thing, there's so much more to gain from it. I absolutely loved it. Russell, if you're listening, it was fun. It was fun, and I get that with all kinds of people here, and it's really, really fun to see. So I'm sure we are ready to move to the next call, and I'm going to go to Andrea in Wisconsin. How are you doing, Andrea?
I'm doing, thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent. What did you want to talk about today?
Actually, it's kind of a lot about what you and Janet were kind of talking about there at the end. It's about having conversations.
Okay.
I've been an agnostic atheist for a while, was spiritual before that, and it hasn't really been an important issue in my life until recently because my family respects adults, and it's always like, you do what you do.
Yeah.
But my sister has, I have a niece and a nephew who are just amazing kids. I know everybody says that, but they're amazing kids. And they're 5 and 7 now, and they're starting catechism. The family is Catholic. Our family is Catholic.
Sure.
And they're starting to ask questions, and they are noticing that their Aunt Andrea, she doesn't go to church as much, and she doesn't pray, and she doesn't do things. So I'm going to have to start answering those questions soon. But it occurred to me a little bit ago that I don't think my sister actually knows that I am completely agnostic and atheist. I don't believe at all anymore. And I don't know how to start this conversation with her because I don't want her blindsided when her kids come up and ask me what I think in God, and I say, well, I don't really think there is a God.
Yeah, that would be, well, I guess the first thing to do is kind of gauge what your relationship is with your sister. Are you close? Do you talk a lot? Or is it kind of see each other once a month or once a year?
We chat. She lives across the state from me, so we see each other about once every 4 to 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. We chat via phone and Facebook and stuff all the time.
Nice. So, when you were going through doubts before you kind of reached so there is no God, did you ever talk about your doubts to your sister?
A little bit. We talked about, when I was talking about my problems with the Catholic Church, we talked about that, and we talked about when I was going through my spiritual but not deistic phase, we talked a little bit about that. But it was never super in detail because she never rejected it. She understood where I was coming from, but it was never important enough for her where she would feed back into the conversation, if that makes sense.
I completely understand that. So the odds are she's probably pretty primed to get to hear that from you. If you've had those conversations with her before, even a little bit at a time. It wouldn't be coming completely out of left field. Do you think that you're close enough with her that if you did initiate this conversation, you would be able to survive as sisters from it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think we probably would. I think I worry that it might, you read about people, they talk about how talking with an atheist makes people think about death, so I worry that it would make her draw away for a while, but I don't think it would be permanent.
Sure.
But I also don't want her to feel attacked, like I'm saying that she's wrong.
Right, right. Oh, completely understood. So this is completely my experience, and I could be wrong, especially about your personal experience. I don't know you and your sister, but what I've seen is that when I've talked to Christian friends of mine, and they didn't know that I was an atheist, after I brought it up, it didn't take long for them to try and turn me into their pet project. So it wasn't I don't want to talk to you, it's I want to evangelize to you. And I was cool with it. I actually really enjoyed those conversations. So if you're, it's just something to consider that you probably might have those conversations, but I have a feeling you could probably handle yourself pretty well. So that's not a huge worry for me, I think, listening to you.
So when you talk to your Christian friends, was it something that came up naturally in the conversation, or you started it? If you started it, my big problem is I don't know how to start the conversation with her, and it's pretty clear, especially since my niece is about to go through First Communion, this is going to come up soon.
Yeah. So
because my niece asked questions about everything. We had a 20-minute conversation the other day about why some people have tattoos and others don't.
Right. I would advise, if I were in your shoes, what I would do is I'd come from this open, honest place that you're coming from when you're talking to me. If you say, hey, there's this thing I want to talk to you about, and I've been afraid to talk to you about it because I care about what you have to say, you might get better reception if you don't jump in with the atheist word. I know some people are going to be really upset about that in comments, and that's totally okay. But the baggage that I came with was that an atheist is not just someone who doesn't believe. An atheist is someone who worships the devil, or that actively tries to subvert, the religion that I'm in, or the religion that I was in. So what I would say is, I don't believe. You can bring it up, and you don't need to be this this mountain of, this pillar. I'm completely secure in it, because it is your sister. And that vulnerability translates. And being able to be vulnerable with your sister is important, especially if you have that close of a relationship with her. Doing that, I think, can help, because then it can say to her, I'm not on guard for myself. I'm not worried about her trying to evangelize to me or to deconvert me. What my sister's trying to do is talk to me, and she doesn't believe. Okay, and from there, it's going to take some time. The time will come where she'll try and convert you. If you want to have those conversations, they're a blast to have. If you don't, though, at least it can open up the ability to have other conversations in the future. Because when you start with that not being open with the people that you care about, and you can be open with the people that you care about, it can be detrimental in the long run, from what I've seen, because you're keeping a secret life. But, obviously, if this was different, and I'm just saying this for other people watching, you're not in this situation, but for people who are dependent on family members who are religious, or know that they would be ousted from the community that they're in if they were to say, I'm an atheist, don't do that. Don't do that if you can't afford it, because nobody's depending on you. There's no heaven that's going to come to you for evangelizing that. But on the other side of it, being that person for people, if you do get to be that person, because there's a good chance that your sister's going to have questions for you too, not just her kids. And being able to answer those questions makes you a resource, not just for her kids, but her family. And it's going to be okay. But if you're interested in calling and letting us know, I'd love to be able to talk to you about what happens.
All right.
So
well,
if you're interested.
Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Andrea, if you're not interested in calling because, it's personal, I completely understand, please email. Our email is webmail, or no, it's not. It's mail at talkheathen.com. MAIL at talkheathen.com. Let's see if we can get it on the lower third. Mail at talk. No, not happening. That's okay. Andrea, you take care. It's wonderful talking to you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Ah, it just gives me the warm fuzzies. I love it. I know that it might seem, it may seem like it doesn't make a lot of sense. You should be an out atheist. You shouldn't be an out atheist. I advise against it. I advise for it. But the reality is I can't speak to everybody's personal story. I can't speak to whether or not you are able to talk to your family about it. But what I can say is that for those of you who are able, you're making it easier for people in the future to be able to do that. And that's important. It's important because when you get to be a resource for people, that means it takes the pressure off of people who aren't ready to talk about it. And it doesn't just have to do with God. It winds up spreading out. We really, really promote skepticism. And skepticism doesn't just have to do with religion. It has to do with whether or not you know enough about a specific thing to be able to say with authority, this is right or that is right. It can end a lot of lines of questioning. It can end a lot of lines of thought. If people were to say, oh, hey, I don't need to look into promoting and supporting looking for cures to diseases. If people stopped and said, we really don't need to advance medicine anymore, we're just going to pray for it, that stops things. And we should talk about it because they are. And the more people that we can have that will say, hey, I'm for reason and rationality. We are in a climate in the United States where we need it. We need to be able to say, hey, I'm not a giant controversial person. I'm somewhere in the middle, and that's okay. So I'm going to move on. I'm actually going to take Dan in Laramie. Dan, you're on the air.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing all right, brother. What's up?
Oh, not much. I'm an atheist basically my whole adult life, but I had a story similar to Janet's, and I thought I'd just share since maybe not a lot of people in Wyoming know that there's actually atheists that live out here.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Well, what kind of church were you in?
It was a Baptist church, and we'd actually, when I was a child, I actually lived in Missouri, so we were Southern Baptist.
Ooh.
And I was really indoctrinated, but I don't know. I was always one of those kids that was just curious and asked a lot of questions and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the other church did a little bit better job of fielding my questions. They would deflect and stuff like that as much as they could, but at the same time, they would try to do their best to answer my questions. But So when we moved out to Wyoming, we actually went. My mom was looking for a new church to join, mm-hmm. So she takes us to this Baptist church, and me and my brother went off to Sunday school, off to a early teen Sunday school class, and my sisters went to the little kids Sunday school, and mm-hmm. and my mom went, of course, to some probably Bible study or something like that.
Okay.
And so the guy that was running the class goes, all right, how many people in this room believe every word in the Bible? And and everybody raised their hand except for me and my brother.
Ooh.
Because I was just of the opinion, I was like, well, if man wrote this book, then there's got to be a couple clerical errors at at minimum.
Sure.
So that didn't please him at all, and so the rest of the class was about basically talking directly to me and my brother about why didn't we believe, what was the holdup, what was the problem, and it just didn't go very well, and I don't know why. I mean, I was pretty indoctrinated, but I held to my guns because it didn't make sense to me. I was like, well, this is just a question I have. I don't understand why it's not all right to question anything, especially when you're a teenager. I mean, like, that's part of life. Figuring out the world around you.
Absolutely.
And so it just basically devolved into this horrible argument. Well, I believe every word the Bible has to say, and I don't understand why you don't. And so we go. The Sunday school gets over with. It takes, and we go out into the main church, and of course I sit next to my mother and my sisters and stuff like that. And I see the guy go up and whisper to the pastor, whisper in his ear.
Oh.
And I already felt like I was kind of put on the spot during this Sunday school, because I was like, man, this is kind of bad, considering the fact that I'm, I just have a disagreement of opinion. That's it.
Dan, did they pray for you?
And the rest of the sermon. What's that?
Did they bring you up in front of the church? No.
No, they didn't.
Okay.
But by whispering in the preacher's ear, the preacher, the next hour was a sermon about the devil, and I will never forget the preacher. Like, every time he'd say the devil's name, he would stare directly at me.
Right at you.
And right at me and my brother. And I'd have to say that it was probably the thing that set me on the path to becoming an atheist. I mean, I wouldn't out and out become one until 3 or 4 years later, when I started reading for myself and realizing that a lot of it, there wasn't an answer to my questions.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but it was just, I just think it speaks to, the craziness of the indoctrination. That, I mean, we like this, you can't even ask a question without getting this, you must be inflicted with the devil seed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it makes such a great scapegoat, doesn't it? I mean, I didn't do it. It was the demon that was in me. I didn't cheat on my wife. It was a demon, and now that the demon's gone, now my wife can't be mad because demon's gone. Like, there's this separation from personal responsibility that just it blows my mind. So
absolutely.
But
yeah. That was just, I just thought I'd share. I know a lot of atheists, and and I know Christians tune into this station too. And I really I hope more and more kids start, questioning what's going on. I think the internet's a great tool. I appreciate what you guys do. I really think you're helping the cause. So keep it up.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you for calling in. Quick question: you watching the Super Bowl?
I am watching the Super Bowl.
Who are you rooting for?
I have to go for the Eagles because being from Missouri, they beat the Rams in the first Super Bowl that they won, and so I can never be for the Patriots.
Rock on, brother. Well, I hope you enjoy yourself today, and thank you for calling in.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to take my call.
Absolutely, brother. You take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye. All right. So we do have a couple more lines open, and I will try and get to a couple more people. I do want to reiterate the number is right here, 512-686-0279. And again, this is Talk Heathen. It is Eric flying solo today. Jamie is out and unavailable, so you're stuck with me, but he will be back next week. I am going to move on to... You know what? Let's get Tom. Tom in North Hollywood. Are you there, Tom?
I am. Hello. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. Where in North Hollywood are you?
The living room, at the corner of Laurel Canyon, just south of Magnolia, if you know the neighborhood.
I do, actually.
Oh, well.
Very cool, brother. Very cool. So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I have two. I have a comment about Andrea, who was on earlier in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Did I get the name right?
You did.
Was it Andrea? Okay. She's, the one with the two nieces and wondering how to, open this issue with her sister and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch all of that conversation because I was talking to the screener, but I did want to kind of touch on something that may have been touched, I'm not sure, is that let her be sure that her nieces see that she's good without God. Every few months, call them up and say, hey, I'm going out to, walk dogs at the local animal shelter. Would either of you like to come with me this Saturday afternoon?
Ooh, I love
We're
that.
Go serve lunch at the public library as part of a fundraiser, blah, blah, blah. Don't engage with what they believe. Let them see what you do. That you're perfectly capable of having a life that includes, I'm waving my hand and you can't see it, that your life includes virtue, your life includes ethics, your life includes purpose, and you don't need God or church in driving the steering wheel.
Dang, you're right. Absolutely.
So, something to throw out there. The other thing, if we have time, I don't want to crowd any of your other callers, but I have a story to tell about the public library.
Okay.
I worked for many years at Pasadena Public Library, and one day we had a patron come in who had just noticed that her library card ended in 666. And this was deeply disturbing to her. She'd had the library card. I mean, the card was 2 or 3 designs old. So she'd had the card that way for a large part of the decade.
Yeah.
But she just discovered that the number was 666. And she wanted that fixed right now. She couldn't wait because, himself could show up at any minute, right?
Oh, and of course he owns you if your library card says 666.
Yeah, absolutely. So we gave her a new card right away, She went away happy. That was fine. But I got to talking about it with a couple of my coworkers later that day, and we got to speculating, well, now, does God employ like battalions and regiments of departed servants who used to be bookkeepers and accountants back during their earthly lives so they can poke through cosmic-sized file cabinets and look at tax records and property and sales, restaurant receipts and
to make sure that 666 is
every once in a while, a trumpet fanfare rings out and a voice cries, Charles Howard Davenport, on September 17th at 3 p.m., your sick leave accumulated was 66 hours and 6 minutes. You're going down, punk. Do you really? Well,
what kind of capricious asshole is that God?
No.
Right.
I don't get it. She's welcome to believe in a God like that.
Yeah.
I still come back. The last time I called you guys, I was on about why offer loyalty. Why do you want to be loyal? That's it right there. If you can fear that God if you want, but why? I don't know. It blows my mind. I can't get past that one.
I actually had an amazing conversation with somebody who worked at Chick-fil-A. And this person, an atheist, was the only job they could get at the time. And they were actually working the day that the Prop 8 thing came out. And so they were pro-LGBT and needing to work at Chick-fil-A and was like, it was bad. And they're amazing stories just on that day. But one of the things that struck me the most was she told me that anytime anybody had an order and it ended in, if it was $6.66, they would say, just give me anything. I don't care. Add fries, upsize my drink. I just can't have it end in 666. And I think that wouldn't that be kind of beneficial? If I owned a business like that, I would try and make everything end in 666 because you get upsells. People would have to add more.
We'll round it up to the next $50. Yeah, right. Yes.
Actually,
that's outrageous. Yeah.
It is, and
I confess I get a little conflicted about boycotting companies because the CEO is pardon my language, that affects the bottom lines of an awful lot of employees who don't necessarily share the politics or the spoken opinions of their leadership.
Sure.
And that is an aspect. I studied economics in college, so I get that. There's peripheral stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. I'm glad you called in. I'm glad you called in again. I have not seen an email from you. Give us a shout, man. The mail is...
I emailed you after the first one, but I'll do it again. Yeah.
Did you?
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, it's in there, but I'll do another one. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'll save a story for next time, my Christmas miracle for this year, but that could wait. You guys take care. Have a good one. Good talking to you.
Thank you, brother. It's always good talking to you, too. You take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have to think about how much that has to affect people when people choose to make their politics the politics of an entire group. It drives me nuts. I can't stand it. But you guys don't just want to hear what I have to say. Let's move on to the next caller. I have Flyfox in Utah, the land of the Mormons, the motherland. How's it going?
Yeah, hey, I'm from Utah. Yeah, it's going good. I'm just driving over to Nevada to put some bets on the Super Bowl, but I thought I'd call in, and I have a couple questions about Mormons, if you have any knowledge on that.
I have a somewhat decent knowledge on Mormons and their church and their books. What's up? What can I do for you?
Well, I have a lot of friends that live around here. I've been around Utah for a long time, and they're kind of, kind of weird. They're not like regular Christians, because they believe in the Book of Mormon, and they just are like the rest of them and say you got to have faith. But they just keep going back to Joseph Smith as their prophet that wrote the Book of Mormon.
Right.
And he says that they say that he, in the 1800s, he dug up some golden tablets and translated them from some ancient Egyptian text and wrote the Book of Mormon. And whenever I have a discrepancy with them, they just say, well, you got to have faith and you got to read the Book of Mormon and everything will just work out. But one of the rebuttals I'm getting from one of my friends is that you got to have faith, and this life is a test. So you're being tested all the time. And that's why if your prayers aren't answered or something that doesn't go your way, you just got to keep having faith, and you just got to put up with the test.
Sure.
And I wanted to see I have another topic after that, but I just wanted to see what you would say to something like that.
Yeah, so that actually falls really in line with the popular Mormon belief system. What they say is they have a test that if you doubt that God is real, pray on it and pray on it earnestly, really mean it, and God will show himself to you. And if you don't do it earnestly enough, if you don't believe hard enough, then it's your fault if God doesn't show himself. It's this wonderful little circuitous thing where they could just say, no, you're doing it wrong, duh, right? I mean,
I could say, yeah, I've heard them say that. They don't really say in that way, but I mean, they give you that feeling that you're not doing it right. But their impression is that if you don't get what you're after and you're just being tested, then I could say to them, well, what if you're being tested, and what if whatever you're believing, you're not believing in logic or reason, so you could be dead, and then you would show up to the God, whoever that is, and then he would say, well, I gave you all these reasons, and I was testing you, and you failed, so you're just gullible.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I could put it that way.
You could, but you'd probably not get to them. The thing with the Mormon Church is it's fantastic at insulating itself against outsiders. And one way that they do that is by sending young people on missions. If you go on a 2-year mission where your entire life is revolved around getting doors slammed in your face, when you come back, you are galvanized. I mean, getting people out of that mindset takes you have to come at it from a different direction, because you're right. They believe that their prophet dug up golden plates written in Reformed Egyptian, and he used seer stones called the Urim and Thummim to be able to decrypt these plates, which were taken up to heaven afterward. That is a huge leap of logic, man. I mean, you got to go way out there to get it, and they're really not. You really do have to come in from a different direction. If they say you're not doing it hard enough or you're not doing it well enough, it's nice that you can tell that they care and that they really do want you to see it the way that they see it. But
well, I've had a lot of friends over the years gone on missions. I've seen kids leave. I'm 44 now, so I've been around it for a while, and even my friends that have been back from missions over the years, I see that whole side of the lifestyle. But I hear Utah is a number one place where porn is reported to be sold, and they have a number one prescription drugs in Utah also. So the religion is making the people kind of like, I don't know the word, but
it's the culture.
They're going to ordering porn a lot and taking prescription drugs. And whatever those drugs are, it could be anything from the doctor, but it's killing a lot of kids here. And there's a lot of people here that have a lot of problems, and they just kind of shove it under the rug.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you that I know about the culture, and I know about the missionaries and all that stuff. It doesn't make sense to me. They just come to me and tell me that they have all these all their prophecies or their prayers have been answered. Like, I was just thinking of one guy said his wife had brain surgery like 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. He said he prayed the whole time, and now she's better. She had brain surgery, so she probably just recovered from brain surgery. But
you'd think,
like,
maybe...
my prayers were finally answered because now she's back to 100%. And I just prayed every day, and I was just like, well, she went to have surgery, and she just recovered naturally. Yeah. So I don't see how that's answering your prayers. But anyway, the next thing is that this guy that I'm talking with, he says, I asked him if he was going to be wrong. If I'm wrong, what am I going to do? And I just said, well, I'll just tell the God when I'm there that if there is a God, that I looked and I couldn't find anything, and I just used my mind and my logical approach and reason, and then I'd be fine with that. And then I would say, like, well, what if you're wrong? What if you missed out and you believe in Mormonism and Joseph Smith? So what if you're wrong? And he's like, well, all the gods are the same. And that didn't make sense to me because he's not really claiming that he believes in the Christianity and the Book of Mormon. But then I say, well, what if you're wrong? And he's like, well, all gods are the same.
Yep.
So I think he's just trying to make an excuse. I don't know. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd take him at his word. If he really thinks that all the gods are the same, then he is insulating himself from that argument. And you know what? That's okay, because it falls apart much quicker that way. If you try and pin it down, it's going to get worse. So I'm going to talk about, it's called Pascal's wager, the what if you're wrong, right? And it's broken up into 4 sections, and you can diagram it. It's going to be terrible to do this, but I'm going to do my best, right? You have the if you are right column, you have the if you are wrong column, and you also have the God existing and God not existing, right? And so in 2 ways, right, it doesn't really matter. If you say that God exists and there is no God, who cares? And the other is if you say that there is no God and there's no God, who cares? But at the opposite ends of it, it gets really tricky. They say, well, if God does exist and you don't believe, then you're going to hell. And if God does exist and you do believe, you get to go to heaven. Well, in their version, they've got the different layers of heaven, but I mean, it follows out the same. So I'm just bringing that up for people who haven't heard the argument fully fleshed out.
Right.
So what that does, though, is it creates a dichotomy that's not real. It's not a real dichotomy because you need to include all of the other deities and all of the other religions. And if he says they're all the same, then there are some religions that don't have deities specifically that you can bring up. When it comes to Pascal's wager,
I think he doesn't want to talk about. He just doesn't want to argue with me because it just ends up circular. But he just said they're all the same, just so he could probably get out of it. Mm-hmm. But then I'm just thinking, like, if they're all the same, he just thinks people are confused all around the world, and they're just they're praising whatever the name of their god is, and he just thinks that it's the main god, and it's just kind of confusing. And it is confusing, but I just think that's his excuse not to go down that road.
Yeah. If I can offer up a suggestion in a thing to bring up with him, I would look at the salamander story.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Where is that?
So it's part of this lore that when Joseph Smith went to get the plates, he wasn't worthy, and so there was a salamander that turned into an angel that scared him away, and he came back.
Story. Look that up.
It's amazing.
Salamander story.
And what's really amazing is that if I remember right, that turned out not to actually be a thing. There's this really big habit that the Mormon Church has of any writings that they think crop up from Joseph Smith or from that inner core, they want to buy, they want to own, they want to take it. And so there have been stories of people who said, oh yeah, no, I've totally got it, and they falsified these documents and have sold these documents to the Mormon Church for a very tidy sum. And so the Mormon Church turns around and, oh yeah, hey, yeah, this is a thing. I mean, you getting new revelations from a prophet is something that they're totally normal with. And so you have...
Yeah, that's I've never heard of that. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
I'm going to lose my train of thought.
It's really, really fun. And what it can do is give you a launching point to talk about, well, if this thing is not true, then how do you know what is? There are lots of things that Joseph Smith has said that the Mormon Church has taken back, including the lightness of your skin has to do with how much you sin, right? Being cursed with a skin of darkness was a thing, and it changed actually, I think, within 30 years. And so the question is, well, if that is fallible and that's fallible, and well, Joseph Smith was talking as a person at this time, but he was talking for God at that time. It really starts to fall apart, because there comes a point where you can only rely on somebody saying, yeah, it's true, cuz. And that could be a good place. You don't need to go further than that for them to start questioning from there. This is just my devil's advocate. If you want to talk,
I've never heard of the salamander story. I haven't really read a lot about their book, but I've been around the people a lot and heard people talk about the book. So I'll have to go look at that. But that does make sense. So I haven't heard about it because it's opposing them, so they wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah. Well, as a culture, it's a mixed bag, and I know that you understand this. I'm just saying. On one side, you have this huge family-friendly, growing, everybody's playing board games together and having a good time look. But on the back end, you do have things like women who are in the church and told, hey, you need to be smiling all the time. Like you need to be happy all of the time. And that is a huge contributor to the drug abuse in Utah. You also have...
it's the word I was looking for earlier, the antidepressants, I guess, is number one here. So,
yep.
So they're on those.
It is. And you also have a significant homeless population of teens who are gay. You have a homeless LGBTQ population out there. And what's kind of fun is that, especially in Salt Lake City, it's become a pro-LGBTQ mecca. There are so many people out there who've gone to be supportive for kids who've been kicked out of their homes that, last I heard, Salt Lake City is a pretty cool place to go if you're gay and want to go and check out some really cool LGBTQ communities.
Well, I do know. I'm not against that, of course. I do have a lot of friends that are mostly, I just know some gay girls, but lesbians, whatever you want to name them. But I don't have anything against those people. But there are a lot of people here that say that they live that way, and I don't care. But I'm not sure. There is homeless people here. It's kind of cold in the winter, so there's a problem with that. But I don't know if I was homeless if I'd want to live in Utah, but they do live here, and I'm not sure. I didn't go around and ask all the homeless people. There is a part of downtown, that is really sloppy or scummy, and they live outside all winter. I didn't go around and ask them what their religions are, but I'm sure, or if they're gay or not. I don't care, but...
No. I'm just giving this up to people who are watching the show.
It's a big city, and there's homeless people all over the country. But I'd rather live in Phoenix than Salt Lake. But I guess they don't have any money; they can't get there. But yeah, those are the two things. I forgot something else, but I'll have to call back next time.
Yeah, and email in.
I wanted to ask you about.
Sure.
I'll go check out that salamander story and try to figure out.
Please do.
More rebuttals for these people. Usually they don't change their mind. These people have been brought up since they were, kids or babies, and they've been believing this, so they're not easily changing their mind. And so I'll just try to have a discussion with them. But thanks for the info. I like your guys' show. I listen to it all the time, and
awesome.
It has a lot of good information. Well, if maybe I've heard you on the show a couple times, but mostly I've listened to Matt and I forgot that girl's name, but I just think
you're talking about the atheist experience.
Yeah, that's show. I know I'm not on that. But,
okay, just just clarifying.
Yeah, I've seen you on your show, but I just watched all you guys' channels or shows, so they're all good. I just wanted to say good job.
Oh, rock on. We really appreciate that. At the atheist community of Austin, we're trying to come out with more and more good content for you. And I really, I've been on the atheist experience. There have been people on the atheist experience on here, and there will be more in the future. We're trying to support each other, and I'm really glad you enjoy it, because that means that we're doing something right, and we want to continue to do it. So thank you, brother. Go ahead.
It's good. So I'll call you guys next time. Thanks for letting me on.
Sounds good. You take care, brother. Thank you for calling in.
All right. See you.
All right. Okay. To stop the hate mail from I'm okay with being wrong. Tell me I was wrong. It's okay. In the comments, tell me I was wrong. I will submit a retraction. From what I understand, the LGBTQ population, homeless population in Utah was taken from a study of people who came into homeless shelters in Salt Lake City. So if that is outdated or if the sample size was too small, I'm totally okay with that. But that is what I get from it. And so I am happy to learn more, but I do feel pretty comfortable about that. I'm going to move on to John in Louisiana. You're on the air. How's it going, John?
All right. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, brother. What do you want to talk about today?
I just wanted to call in and tell you about something that happened to me.
Sure.
Personal story, kind of like a statement. So a couple of years ago, I was watching the show, and I agree with everything that y'all talked about, because I was an atheist. And I believe that when people, brought up the subject to me about God or Jesus, I dismissed it as a fairy tale. I looked at them like they were crazy. It was crazy and stupid.
John, can I ask you a clarifying question really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Were you raised in a religious environment, or were you always, just outside of Christianity?
Partly. I was raised partly religion. In other words, my mother was religious. My dad wasn't.
Okay. Did you have a lot of do you have a lot of experience in church?
I went through the normal processes in church and catechism,
Okay, Catholic. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a clear sense of it. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So anyway, I got to a point where I was a non-believer. There's no doubt about that. But so one day I was in my home, the same home I'm in right now. Mm-hmm. And I just got down on my knees and I prayed and I cried my heart out and I said, listen.
Why would you do?
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Why would you do that if I didn't believe it?
Yeah.
Because I was struggling with the non-belief and I just didn't know, but I wanted to know the truth. Either there is or there isn't, and I wanted to know the truth right then and there. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So I got on my knees and I prayed and I cried my heart out and I said, dear God, if I was really trying to reach out to my deceased mother, and I said, if you're there and it's real, just give me a sign, let me know, because I'm I need to know the truth, now, soon. And in the next day or so, I started hearing knocks throughout my home,
You started hearing what?
that were very, very obvious knocks, loud knocks.
Knocks. Okay.
That happened next to me as I was standing against the wall.
Okay.
It happened on the window. It happened on the window pane.
Mm-hmm.
It happened what happened on doors that as I was closing.
Okay.
Hard knocks. Deliberate knocks that are unexplainable. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
And you do you feel that is a sign from God? That God was knocking?
It is what it is.
Well, no, I agree it is what it is, whatever we have to say about it, but do you think that was a sign from God?
I do. And the reason I do, and I'll tell you why. Because I prayed for it, asked for it. I didn't ask for a knock, but I asked for something.
Right.
And I did receive it.
Right.
Now, there is no doubt in my mind what the knocks were.
Okay,
Because
so...
would have been here, if you yourself would have been here to witness and hear what I heard several times in a week's time, believe me, trust me, you would be asking questions also.
Well, actually, you know, that is a really great launching off point. That is a question of skepticism, and it's how you evaluate the things around you, how you're able to determine, you know, where something is coming from and what you would weigh that up against, right? So let's say that you know, let's put the it was God possibility there, and let's take a look at other possibilities. Do you live in an old house?
Yes, but it's not a house, it's a mobile home. Okay.
Do you have neighbors within earshot? Do any of them have cats?
No, not. I'm surrounded by a huge huge wooden fence, and a small wooded area that's way back in the back of me.
Okay.
And my relatives right next to me to the right, and
okay.
I immediately jumped up and looked all around with open windows all around me.
Totally cool. I'm just listing these out, right? Do you understand that people have auditory hallucinations at times? That you're not outside of that, right? Like I can explain to you that when my grandma passed away, I was very, very upset, and I fell to my knees and cried and I prayed, and I thought I heard a voice that said Hashem. Right, I looked it up, and that's how the people in the Jewish religion refer to God, because they don't want to say God, right? As I've gone in and taken a look at that, I was also in an incredibly stressful place, right? I was prone and I was open to anything, right? In that place, would you say that you were very, very emotionally susceptible? I mean, I know I was.
What's your name again?
My name's Eric.
Okay, Eric. Okay. And I respect you very much, and thank you for letting me be on the show, by the way.
Absolutely, John. I'm just trying to, I want to relate to you. I want to show you that, you know, these kinds of things happen, but also that, and really what I'm going at, I'm not trying to give you a gotcha. What I'm really trying to say is if you were to list out the things, including a psychotic break, right?
Okay.
Which happens when people are super stressed. If you were to list those things out and compare them against the God idea, they are infinitely more likely to have happened, because you need to show a lot of things to be able to prove that God. So let's just take the amorphous, non-Christian, the thing out there. Right?
Okay, we can do that, yes.
Okay, so let's look at the amorphous thing out there that you're trying to decide is God, right? That you're calling God. Right. I'm trying to give you every possible thing that could, you know, make you right. Let's take away the all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful. Let's take away the sent his son to die on the cross. Let's take away the book. Let's take away all of that, and this is just a thing that is happening to you. How can that thing interact in our world, right? If it's outside of the world, because, I mean, it would need to be, unless you believed that it was a ghost. I guess we could talk about that, but am I on the right track here?
Well, Eric, let me just say this. I've been taking into consideration about the hallucinations and, you know, other things causing the knock, but I can also tell you, Eric, I'm very sound. Okay, I don't know how to.
Well,
I'm telling you that when this happened, I was not stressed. This was 2 years after my mother had died. This was just something.
John, you said you fell to your knees crying out.
Yes, but that's because I was searching. I wanted the truth. I wanted an answer now.
So you were not
I
stressed
wasn't
at that time?
Stressed. No, I was not under stress. I did that because I wanted the truth badly.
It sounds like you wanted.
Listen, I was ready to dismiss. And the truth is, what I heard was real. Now, here's the thing. I'm saying that it was something, and whatever that something is, if it is supernatural, ghost, as you said, then what is that? What does that mean?
That's an amazing question. That's an amazing question. Let's take that. So if it was a ghost, it would still be more likely to be a ghost than a god. Because that takes less.
But if there's a ghost and no God, then what is that? That has to be supernatural.
Well, and I'm giving you this. I'm reaching as far out as possible to give you this, right? If there is such a thing as a ghost, then you're not giving it the power to create universes and know everything about everyone, including all of their thoughts, and be loving and be able to touch their lives personally. That ghost. In all of those ways is more likely to exist than a god. And I have no reason to think that ghost exists. Right? Okay. So if you're weighing it out, then I would say that, and this isn't to say anything bad about people who have psychotic breaks, because it happens to not everybody, but it happens.
But it didn't,
right?
But it didn't happen to me. Eric, it did not happen to me.
Okay, how do you know that?
It did not happen.
How did you rule that out?
Because what I heard was real. I heard no voices. Nobody called out Yosef to me. Nobody said nothing to me. I've never heard or seen anything in my life. But I heard what I heard, and there's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. It happened several times throughout the week. Several times to catch my attention.
So, I won't doubt your sincerity on whether or not it happened, but I will ask you again how you concluded that it was a god and not
because I asked
anything
for it.
else.
I asked directly. I asked for it, and I prayed and I asked for it because I wanted the truth. I was a non-believer.
Then let's dig down to the truth, right? I'm assuming, you and I both live in the United States, you're in Louisiana. I'm assuming that you're Christian? Maybe? Possibly?
I cannot say that I'm a full Christian because I have just, after this happened, I'm trying hard to be. I live my life, I try to do the right thing, love, forgiveness.
Sure.
And just the right thing. I'm not going to claim something that I'm not.
So that's the right place to start, is saying I don't know, because that opens you up to have the experience of searching. And that's totally okay. And you know what? If you don't get to that answer in your lifetime, that's still okay, because you're being honest enough to say I don't know. And I appreciate that. What I do want to explore is the intent behind it, because where I was going to go with it, as I was going to say, is if we're talking about the classic Christian God, how come that God didn't just knock on the door and say hi, right? Instead, chose to knock randomly around the house, or write you a letter or something like that. I mean, any of those things would be far more likely to have happened than that God, right?
All I can say, Eric, I'm trying to be very, very honest.
I appreciate that, John.
All I can tell you is what happened to me after I asked for it. I didn't ask for a knock. I just asked for something. I think that it happened in a way.
Couldn't that mean that anything would have been an answer then?
I think any kind of sign that would let me know, hey, yes, this is real, and let me know in that way. It let me know in a knock. For whatever reason, I don't know.
It could have been the TV turning on, and that could have been a sign, right?
That would not have done it for me.
That would not, but a knock did?
It's several knocks throughout a week.
Okay.
I'm Eric.
I'm just knocks happen. Things cause sound to happen, and even if not, people can get that.
Can I let me explain this to you?
You go right ahead, John.
I was standing in my kitchen, and I had completely forgot about the prayer. I wasn't thinking at it at that moment. I was standing there, and there's a wall, a solid wall to my right, and then next to it is a window pane. So the on the wall next to me, it banged as loud as you could. At first I was shocked. I was like, "What the hell?"
Have you heard of exploding head syndrome?
No, I don't have it. Whatever it is. So anyway, listen to me. Right after the knocks on the window pane, it sounded just like someone would have taken a quarter and stood there and knocked on that window pane like they wanted to break it.
Sure. So do me a favor, John. The only reason I'm cutting in at this point is because we're running late, and I want to get to a few more callers. I really want to have this conversation longer, though. Would you be interested in calling again next week when my co-host and I are both on?
Yes.
Yes, there won't be a Super Bowl. You'll have more time.
I could care less about a Super Bowl or anything else.
Okay. I'd really appreciate you calling in. I'd really like that. I see that you have the number, but I'm going to repeat it for other people who are watching. 1-512-686-0279. John, in the meantime, email us, mail@talkheathen.com. What I'd really love for you to do is take a look at exploding head syndrome. It is amazing. And what it is it's been diagnosed.
I'm not going to look at that because I don't have it. That's you're not talking to
Hold on, John. You would say that you can clinically diagnose yourself?
Yes. At this point, what did you say, exploding head syndrome?
Yes. Do you even know what that is?
I tell you what, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
I don't have it. I promise you that.
John, I'm going to have a conversation with you as long as you and I are both willing to listen to each other and to actually check things out. Check it out, please. It's for people who don't know what it is. There is a so far unexplained phenomena where people hear very loud sounds randomly, and some people have.
But I don't hear it randomly. It happened one time in my life.
You said it happened multiple times throughout the week.
Yes, that's a one-time experience is what I mean. It happened once and quit. It's done. It's over.
Check it out. It might be worth checking out.
Okay, I'll listen to you. Now you listen to me and we can both understand each other clear.
All right.
I do not have it, whatever that is.
Okay.
I'm willing to talk to you, and as long as we, can be honest with each other.
Yeah.
But you can't put it off by exploding head syndromes.
John? We can listen to each other and we can disagree. The fact is any explanation is more likely than a God, because any explanation that doesn't any explanation that doesn't revolve around supernatural things that nobody has proven yet exists, then they're far more likely. And I'm going to continue to do that and I'm going to continue to say that and talk to you about that because I think that's important.
If you only would have heard what I heard as a non-believer.
I've heard knocks a lot. People knock on my door. I've been to gun ranges.
Someone has not knocked. I'm just being honest. It's what I heard. It's what I know. It's what I feel. It's real. It happened.
So there's a difference between if you only care about what you feel, then we don't need to talk, right? If you care about drilling down to the truth and following the answers. So again, John, if you care about what actually happened, then you're not going to start with the conclusion in mind, right? You're going to follow the evidence wherever it lies, and that can include looking up something like exploding head syndrome, right? If you are not willing to check out other possible responses or other possible reasons, then
I'm trying to tell you.
You just diagnosed yourself on air as a thing you don't even know.
Exploding head syndrome, yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the point in us talking, right?
Well, I have to get my story out. I have to tell the truth.
Well, John,
it is the truth.
I appreciate that you called.
Simple.
I would definitely love to talk more about other things that could have caused it because I care about what could have happened.
We can do that. As long as it's not nonsense about exploding head syndrome, we can talk about it. Sure. I'm willing.
John, I'll talk about a lot of things. I'll talk about a lot of things. I'll meet you where you're at. What I won't do is belittle people who have clinical diagnoses. Ever.
Who is that?
Right? People who are diagnosed by a professional to have an actual disorder or an actual problem, who are non-neurotypical. I'm not going to go out of my way to say that that's just not okay. I'm not going to belittle people like that. So I appreciate that you don't.
I don't either. And they do exist. I mean, no disrespect towards them.
Okay, then look it up before you start saying that you don't have it. Okay?
I don't have it. Now, other people probably do.
Okay.
I don't disrespect them.
All right,
you know?
John, take a look.
Talk about it again.
All right.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Absolutely. You take care, brother.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else who wants to talk about big knocks, that's fine. Knocking on heaven's door. If it's happening, you're most likely having something other than a God. That's ridiculous. I do have just a few minutes left, and I want to get through to the people who've been kind enough to be waiting on the line. So I'm going to try and get through this quick. I'm going to go to Mark first. Mark in Buffalo, New York. How are you doing today?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm sorry I didn't leave a lot of time left to talk to you, but really quick, what do you got?
It's all right. Mine is kind of long. It's probably best that I either email or go in,
Sure.
So you go ahead and take the call that's ahead of me.
Okay, Mark. In the meantime, take a look at other things on social media if you want to share it. If you just want to talk to us about it, cool. Mail us, call in next week. Email is mail, M-A-I-L, at talkheathen.com. You can definitely call in next week. We come on at 1 o'clock Central at 1-512-686-0279. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir, or wait, we talked about this.
Yes,
there's a secular equivalent.
Like
I believe the secular equivalent is providing evidence to the well-reasoned jury. I think I'm going to have to look it up. It's quippy and it's good. I'm going to get it by next week. Mark, give us a call. I'd love to talk to you about it. I apologize that we didn't get there this week. If you want to talk to other people about it, check us out online, because that means other people can get involved, and that's always a lot of fun. In the meantime,
all right.
You take care, all right, brother?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. With Mark gone, our last person dropped off. So I am going to conclude this week. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for listening in, and thank you for supporting. If you know people who would like the show, please tell them about it. Like, share, subscribe on Facebook, on YouTube and Facebook, and Reddit, reddit.com/talkheathen. You can also take a look at the possible Twitch stream that is not related to the ACA. It's a side project that I'm thinking about doing. Actually, you know what? I'll post about that. Also, you can shoot out to Jamie at reason_a thing, and he's going to hate me for not remembering, but sorry, Jamie, you're not here. You can also, just email us. Check it out, and we're really, really happy you're here with us. So, with that said, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Bye.